Okay, so this one is about the nature of we the people, and this is a phrase that's commonly used to talk about the power of the people, we the people. And when I think of the phrase "we the people," the thing that pops into my mind is the Constitution in the United States of America. And so I just want to share the nature of we the people versus the government. And it's not actually a versus scenario. The government's an integral part of actualizing the will of the people. And that's really the dynamic in how it's been established and how it always has been established, even with the Crown. In New Zealand, our allegiance is with the Crown as natural persons. And so the first thing I want to share with you is that quite simply, we the people is a voice, and the government, it is the authority for the body. So if you think of, let's use, I'll use the New Zealand as a metaphor. So in New Zealand, we have we the people, a unified voice. Well, we're meant to. It's a bit more complex than that now, because the voice of the people is largely lost. But I'll get to that in a second. So you have the collective body. So if you think of each individual human being, their body is a cell in the greater body of the nation of New Zealand. So every human being's body is a cell in the body of New Zealand, and the government is the custodian of the body. And then we the people, we are the custodians of the voice. And so if you think of, when you talk about a collective of people, you often talk about a body of people. And it's like cells. If your body as a human being is made up of trillions of different cells, and it's one body, and it's the same with New Zealand. The government is the custodian of the body, the physical body and the vessel, and all of those cells combined create the body of the nation, of the people of New Zealand. Now, so the body is a vehicle, it's a vessel. And the voice of the people is something completely different and totally separate. Totally separate. So the voice it commands the vehicle. So to give you a scenario, at an individual level, so I have a physical body, and then I have a voice, and that voice is what commands the vehicle. So if I'm contemplating, so if I'm sitting here in the morning contemplating what to do in the afternoon, it's a voice that's directing me in my mind. Shall I do this? Shall I do that? I'm going to this. I'm going to that. It's always a voice. Whether it's an internal dialogue you're having or an external dialogue, the voice contains the will, and my will be done. If I want to make a coffee, if that's my will, then my body is powerless to stop me from doing that, unless it, is incapacitated somehow. And so, let's say, but there are very obvious limitations and very obvious lines that you can't cross. So let's say it is my will to turn the element on the stove, and it is my will to touch it. Well, my body is going to respond on its own accord to protect itself and to potentially jerk away and react and respond out of self-preservation. And so that's where the line is. That's where the limit is my body it's a vessel to carry out my will. However, the line is drawn at self-preservation, and it will it will intervene if my will can be to its own detriment. So it will self-preserve and override my will potentially. Not that it can really stop me, but it will do everything within its power to protect itself without actually imposing its will upon mine. So if I move my hand really close to the element on the stove and it's going to get burnt, it can send impulses throughout its entire body and all these chemicals firing and preparing itself to get burnt, to deal with the reality of being burnt. I can still choose to touch the element. And so this is the nature of being the commander of the vessel, and the reality of the vessel being the body or the vehicle. It doesn't matter what you call it. It is the vehicle for carrying out the will. And the will is the voice. That's me. That's the part of my nature that is speaking now, that is expressing itself through the body. And this is really a simple. Once you look at it properly, you can separate the two quite clearly. And so the voice of we the people. So a voice is just sound, right? So I'm speaking right now. You're hearing my voice. It's just sound. And when I say just sound, obviously it's the essence of everything is sound, and everything of physical form is just a vehicle for the expression of that sound. And so you can combine those things. So you can have a unified voice. And the way to unify a voice is by an individual human being sharing their intent or their will, and for others who have a shared intent to join in that intent, and then you form a group of people who have a unified voice, who are shared of intent. And that unified intent represents the unified voice of we the people. And of course, the unified voice of we the people is, we're not going to agree on everything, but the whole point is that there are things that we do all share that are common to all of us. And in terms of being an entire collective, let's say the unified voice of the nation of New Zealand, there will be a singularity of purpose and intent that we all share. We all want to survive as a baseline minimum. We all want to have the opportunity to appreciate the assets, to actualize the potential of the genetic potential of our body. That's a really rewarding experience. The genetics within our body are there to be utilized to meet the unmet need of someone else, or to unlock and appreciate dormant potential within our body. And we want to thrive. We want to be curious. We want to explore our own nature. We want to explore the potential of our body. We want to taste new flavors of experience. We want to transcend our fear. And there is a unified intent of purpose that I think we can all get to, and we can all share, so that we can have a unified voice. Now, the problem we have in New Zealand is, actually, I'm not going to go into politics right now. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to understand what the nature of we the people and what it means. So, legally speaking, we the people, we are the immutable being of New Zealand, and it is the will of the people that is fulfilled by the body, and the body is the government body. So that is an agency that is appointed on behalf of the voice of we the people to carry out its will. But thy will be done. The will of the people is what trumps everything. And so if you were to personify New Zealand as a human being, with the body of people and with a unified voice, then it is the unified voice of the people and the will of the people that is carried out by the government body. So the voice is the commander, issues the commands. If I want to burn my hand on the element, I'm free to do that. But the body is free to prepare itself and to protect itself at any cost, utilizing the resources at its disposal, which is all the organs and cells within my body, all the physical biology within my body. It can activate the potential of those, protect them, keep them safe to the best of its ability, but it can't determine the direction. It can't determine the course of action that I want to take. And so you have to separate those things out. And this is what we see in the world today, is we the people, we share our intent, and then the government utilizes the physical resources of the human body, of the resources within the earth. It has agency upon those. And so ultimately our human body is an asset, and it's and the government is seeking to turn that asset into wealth. I mean, that's the originally intended purpose. Your body is the dormant potential to produce something, to meet the unmet need of the marketplace. And so it's in the best interest of the government agency to unlock that potential through education, through healthcare, looking after you, through basic infrastructure and services to facilitate, the movement of biomass throughout the ecosystem. Biomass being, money and resources. And so it has the authority. But it's very important to, and this is a really clear distinction that is really important to understand, is that constitutional law, or common law, is the voice. It is the will of the people. It is the will of the human being being expressed. And then you have statute, and then that is the nature of the actualization of that will. So you need both, but we need to, I think it's really important, we need to really understand that that mechanism of law is only held in place by the will of the people, we the people. And the government is empowered to act as an agent, on behalf of the Crown, which it is, our allegiance is pledged to the Crown. But at an individual level, any contract that's held with an agent that has a contract with the legal person, which is the name of our body, the name on your birth certificate, that's the asset, that's the body, but that is not the voice. That is not the voice. And so if I express myself as the voice, separate to the body, and I revoke the authority that some company has, or that the government has, or that anything under statute has, if I'm absolutely free to revoke that authority and the agency that someone has, just through a declaration, because my will be done as an individual. And your rights are reserved at all times. And that includes the right to revoke, the right to repudiate, the right to refuse, the right to remain silent, to withhold the truth, the right to anything that you're free, without question and justification. And very different to the law of statute. But the law of statute is only bonded to the physical asset, which is the body itself. But it cannot impinge upon the will, which is the voice. And so you can use your voice as the commander to issue statements of command, and they can extinguish and dissolve any and all bonds, bonding any agency to the physical asset of the body, which is the name on the birth certificate, and that is it's almost like the equivalent of a deed of entitlement that enables statutory agreements to bond to that physical body. And, so you are the voice, that's who you are, and you are in charge of the asset, which is the name on your birth certificate. So really important to just understand the dynamics of how it works so that you realize that you are free to wield your power. And I think if you work for a company that is a legal company under statute law, it's a body. It's recognized as a body, as an asset, as a vehicle. And but it's very important to understand that even as the commander of your body within that company, your voice is still governed by common law, and you're still accountable for the impact of that voice, of the commands that you issue, being the decisions that you make, the course of action that you take. You're still accountable for that under common law. And that's an inescapable truth of the impact of your word. Your voice is who you are, and your body is the vehicle to carry out your will. But only your body is bound to statute law. But you just have to know that in order to exercise your will and to wield your power by issuing commands. Whereas under statute, the full, I would say, the only power you really have as an agent who's bonded to another asset is to issue a demand, because the commander is always the voice that is in charge of the asset. And so just to zoom out of that, again, look at the government of New Zealand. Look at the nation of New Zealand. The body, that's the government. The voice, it's we the people. It's the voice of the collective body. And our will be done. And there's no two ways about it. We just don't have a unified voice, because we pretty much channel all of our we've pretty much delegated all of our authority as the voice to, we've given the job of being the voice to the Prime Minister and their cabinet. Whereas what's meant to happen is you're meant to have a representative as the voice, and that would not be the Prime Minister. That would be a secretary who then delegates or is a spokesperson on behalf of we the people as that voice, and then that voice is spoken, and then the will of the voice of the people is then carried out by the Prime Minister. So it's always delegated authority, and it's always the will of the people that is done. Whereas I think at the moment we pretty much delegate the responsibility for the voice to the Prime Minister as well, which is not how it's meant to be at all. We're meant to separate out the executive and the judicial from the will and from the community itself, and that will is the voice. So, ideal scenario, we the people have a constitution, and it is a statement of intent, and then that is carried out and executed by the government body, and they're free to do it in whichever way they want to, but it's always to fulfill the will of the people. And so, I think a classic one is people get confused about referendum. In some countries they have a binding referenda, and Switzerland is an example. We've had referenda in New Zealand, and most of the time the government they spend millions administering it, and then they go in the opposite direction of what the people have asked for, which is completely, I mean, that just goes to demonstrate exactly that the body is not following the will of, it's not following the commands of the voice. So imagine your body if you commanded it to do something and it just refused. You really want a cup of tea. You go to make a cup of tea and instead it decides to draw a picture. So it's obviously not ideal when the government body, can choose to reject the will of the commander. But I understand how it's got there, how we got to this place. But man, it's, as someone who's obviously gone into this in great depth and trialed it in lots of different scenarios, I can see how it's gotten to this point. But I think it's quite tragic, the amount of indifference that human beings have when they feel like they're protected by a statutory contract or an agreement in their workplace, really having no clue that they're responsible for the impact of their choices and decisions as the commander of their body. When they're doing their job, they feel like they're protected by the company and protected by the government and by a statute. When in reality, you're always exposed to the impact of your voice, meaning the decisions you make on the courses of action that you take as the commander of your vehicle. So my suggestion would be to people at the moment, if you're not aware of the tsunami that's coming with Web3 and DAOs and common law-based smart contracting, and distributed authority and all that kind of stuff. If you're not familiar with the settlements that are being made utilizing DAOs that are circumventing statute law, if you're not aware of how people are utilizing it in civil law to circumvent the criminal system, there is a massive enormous tsunami coming, and the penetration of the market in terms of DAOs, which are if you operate a DAO from the perspective of being your legal person, being the body instead of the voice, then you're just bound to statute in the normal way. But people who understand that the voice and the body are separate, they're already running common law governed DAOs that are governed by the voice under common law constitutions that are utilizing companies as a vehicle to carry out the will of the community, and those are not bound to statute, those DAOs. And so there are, and at the moment, because you can't regulate a DAO that's not recognised under statute law, and with the nature of Web3 and the nature of cryptocurrencies and NFTs and smart contracts operating on networks that are that can enable a human being to be anonymous because they're operating outside of statute law, then there's a massive informal economy evolving, and we can't measure it. We don't know who's in charge of it. We don't know what's going on. It's just an unseen voice issuing commands to operate an unseen body in an unmeasurable body. So it's I liken it to a if you think of the formal economy as the conscious economy and this new economy as an unconscious, subconscious economy forming, we don't really know how big it is, and it's invisible, but we know it's coming. It's going to grow exponentially. And so I think if you're involved in, if you, especially a large company, and you're only dealing in the formal economy, I would definitely start looking at how you can create a bridge between the formal economy and the informal economy as quickly as you can, because there's so much value building up and accumulating in the informal economy, and that is sucking fiat currency out of the money supply in the formal economy. I mean, that can still be measured in the formal economy, but there are many more scenarios where tokens are being minted and being utilized as a means of exchange outside of the formal economy. And so there's so much value being stored in the informal economy, and actions and transactions are taking place, exchanges being facilitated, and we don't really know what's going on. But more importantly is when you start linking those assets that are being created to resources, you'll then see the emergence of a resource-based economy where there are actually resources moving throughout the informal economy, utilizing these tokens as a means of exchange instead of fiat currency. And so there's a resource-based economy emerging out of nowhere, and it's going to debase the value of fiat currency even more than what it is right now. So if you think prices of food at the moment are bad, it's going to get worse, much, 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 much worse. So take heed and figure out how you can get on board sooner rather than later. And if there's anyone involved in the actual government of New Zealand who wants to understand this more, please reach out, because I've tried to reach out multiple times to dozens of people who seem indifferent to it. Maybe it sounds too far-fetched, I don't know, but it's already happening. And so if you do want to reach out, please feel free. Okay, that's it for now for the nature of We the People. Talk soon.